resilience. And I have joined with me online Dr. Felix Larry Silfi, a development economist and executive director, IDER. Dr. Silfi, you're welcome this morning.
Thank you, my brother. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. And happy Independence Day to you, or belated Happy Independence Day.
Many happy returns to you, my brother.
And I'm also joined online by Dr. Evans Nunu, who is an economist. Dr. Nunu, good morning.
Good morning.
And I trust you're doing well.
Grace, I hope you are fine too.
Absolutely, I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Yesterday we celebrated the 69th birthday of our beloved country, Ghana. His Excellency delivered a speech, I must say an inspiring speech of how our future should look like. Let me start with Dr. Nunu. 69 years of Ghana's existence. What are your general thoughts?
Well, I think in terms of our democracy, for several decades ago, we did not do too well because of intermittent coup d'etats and the likes. But for some time now, we have been relatively stable. Let me say about 33 years now. So that is a plus on our democracy. And we've also been able to contain ourselves for that long as compared to what had been happening in the past. So for that, we are happy. And we also must commend the 1992 Constitution for how far it brought us, because some came, they lived shortly and expired, or probably were overthrown. But the 1992 Constitution has been able to sustain this nation for that long. And so we have to commend the Constitution and the framers. And in terms of our economic progress, I am personally not impressed. I think we've been saddled with corruption and nepotism and all those things. So if you look at the progress, comparing ourselves to other nations like Singapore, Malaysia, and the likes, you realize that we have not done so well. And we seem to be comparing ourselves with other African countries. But I must say that there's nothing wrong being pace setters in terms of development and democracy. So if we gain independence with others who are doing so well, why do we then compare ourselves with? It's like being in class and comparing yourself with the last person in the class instead of struggling to be the first. And so for me, if I look at all those things, I'm not too sure in terms of our development, in terms of our growth. I'm not too happy with that. However, all hope is not lost. We can still do better. We can improve and make sure that we are doing the right things to change the structure of the economy from the gorgeous big state to something that can propel us into enviable growth.
All right. Dr. Silfi, Ghana 69. What are your general thoughts?
Okay. Once again, thank you, my brother, and good morning to my colleague, Dr. Nuno.
Good morning.
I will start by putting out a rhetorical question. Ghana is 69 years now since independence. If Ghana were to be a human being, and he or she is at the age of 69 years, are we going to be proud of the kind of life such a person has lived, even post-retirement? Because we all know that the official retirement age is 60 years plus 9 years. Are we going to be happy? Will that person be proud in terms of life achievement and how well he or she has lived his life? In terms of peace, I would say that one, nobody can take it from us. No matter how Ghanaians will be angry, we will never take machetes and clubs and go after each other or one another. So that one is there. Democratically, we have proven to the whole world that we are matured people. The president stated that emphatically yesterday, that there has been transitions upon transitions from one government to the other, and we have not had any turbulence as far as our democratic dispensation is concerned. And so for that matter, we say democratically we've done very well. But I can hit my chest and say that economically and development-wise, we are lagging behind. Because if you look at countries that were even using Ghana as a model since our independence and how far they have come and where we are now, I believe if it were to be in the education sector, we would say that Ghana was a senior who has been repeated in one class or at one particular level for a period of time for all its juniors or his juniors or her juniors to come bypass him and graduate. And Ghana is still where it is. So on a whole, I would say that we know our president. When it comes to speech, his speeches is very, very good. He always gives inspiring speeches to inspire the young ones and then the people who are being governed. And so that's when I give it to him. Most of the things that he said over there, he was calling for unity and then sense of patriotism and the fact that we have to place the country first beyond our individual, parochial interests and all of that. So I would say it was a good speech. But if you ask me of my general impression, I would say that 69 years, there is nothing precious than having peace and a stable economy in terms of political stability and all of that. So I would say we have done well fairly, but economically, I would say we have not done much as we are expected to do. Thank you.
Right. If I'm to ask you to project into the future, looking at indicators from today as an economist, in the next 60 years of Ghana, what do you see?
That is a very serious question, but I will answer without basing my point on data because I don't have data in front of me. I'm saying this because, you see, governments have come to do well, other governments have come to spoil the whole show. So if I am to make projections based on current data, it will be a bit difficult because, you see, this government will not be in office for that longer period of time. Definitely, the time will come. Maximum 8 years, we may change them. The question is, are those who are coming to take over the affairs of governance going to be as disciplined as this current administration has been? I'm saying this because we can all attest to the fact that currently our macroeconomic indicators are good. They are all looking good. The numbers are showing positive signs. And so there is huge stability. I'm saying huge because if we look at where they took the economy from and how far they have brought us, I would say there have been huge successes in terms of stabilizing the economy. If I am to do a subjective projection without basing my projections on data and facts, I would say that if we get government after government to remain as disciplined as they are, ensuring that there's a smooth and strong intercourse between our fiscal and the monetary, sectors of the economy, as we are seeing now, for which that collaboration is giving us these successes. The discipline in terms of expenditure, making sure that revenue-based fiscal consolidation is in shape as we are seeing now.
Yeah. And
we get government to remain as disciplined as they are. I'm sure we're going to continue to see such positive signs. That's no two ways about it. But I'm being very careful because we don't know whoever, even within NDC, if another person takes over from President Mahama and the person, begins to mess up, we'll go back. I'm saying because we have had this cyclical economic downturn. We go into the ditch, IMF comes in, we remain disciplined, they equip our ass, we remain disciplined, they leave us, and then another government comes, or even the same government runs us back into the ditch. And so it's very difficult to project at this time. And I keep telling people that, look, we should also be careful praising this government so much. Because the question here is that, are they remaining as disciplined as they are because of the IMF? The real test of them, their real test will come after IMF is gone. Are they going to continue to remain as disciplined as they are? Or because they want to meet all the IMF conditionality, that is why they are remaining disciplined? It's also a big question to answer. And so that such a projection, my brother, will be a bit difficult. But I'm saying that condition on the fact that government after government will remain as disciplined as we are, we can go far. We can go far.
Right, Dr. Nun, let me ask you the same question. If you make your projection 60 years from now, where do you see Ghana?
Well, that is too long a period to be able to project. A lot would have to go into it to be able to come out with any concrete projection. The ordinary way to do it is to pick our last 60 years and attempt to see how we will fare. However, if you study the growth of nations, there are times the growth is exponential, especially when we are able to work on the fundamentals and bring in innovations, research and development, yielding serious innovations and other technological breakthroughs that will propel the economy into exponential growth. And so the pace of growth might not be the same. It will not be linear. It could be fluctuating. At a certain point, it could just be going up like that. So it will be very difficult to project. But if I'm supposed to base, without any concrete data in my hand, if I want to project based on what I have seen and experienced as a Ghanaian, I would say that based on the attitude of our politicians, you know, Galamsey is still ongoing. NPP and NDC look so similar, and that is the problem. And we do not even have a third force, because if you're there, you lose. Otherwise, I am sure people like Paco Sindum could have made progress. I'm not saying that they could have won, but if you look at the votes they got, you realize that it's all about NDC and NPP, and the two are so similar. If you look at our historical antecedents, you realize that any party that comes to office that is between NPP and NDC, they take you out of IMF when they are leaving. They beautifully place you there again and go in peace. And then the next one will come, take you from IMF, behave like they are doing well. In their second tenure, they begin misbehaving and then take the country back to IMF and they leave. And when they are about leaving, you see there's something they do. They start employing so many people into various organizations and start increasing national service allowance and promising the people anything just to stay in office. They leave and the burden will be on the next government. So if we don't change the narrative, if this is how we are going to behave, then the next 60 years will not be different from the last 60 years. Like I was saying, people change. There are technological breakthroughs. If you study solo model, I don't want to take you to macroeconomics, but if you study various growth models, you see that we have various paths to growth. And if Ghana must begin to have interest in research and development, and Ghana must begin to have interest in technology, we could experience exponential growth. And I'm very much aware, because I happen to be one of those who put together the National Constitution Review Committee's meeting, the last one in Kumasi, and I was there with other dignitaries. And I think that they've done good proposals. They brought out good proposals. Probably, if we change our constitution and take some powers from some people who get swollen big heads when they get into office and begin to do things, maybe we will see some exponential growth, and our growth rate could be speedy. That is what I'm hoping for. For now, I do not have any concrete fact to say that Ghana will be so different from what we've seen in the past 60 years if we remain the way we are.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now let's transition to our main conversation on this escalating conflict in the Gulf and Middle East region. In fact, one would have thought that there's just a conflict that is some people are fighting, some Americans and the Israelis and the Iranians. But as of yesterday or so, we had news of attacks on even the United Nations peacekeeping team in Lebanon, where we are told even 2 Ghanaians have suffered serious injuries. Now, we're going to be looking at this in the context of how it's affecting Ghana and how Ghana can position itself. Because in previous times, when some people were fighting elsewhere, even unrelated to Ghana, we saw prices skyrocketing. Now, we have enjoyed some reduction in prices until now. With this new conflict coming up, are we going to see some difference in our economy. We're going to have that conversation around that. But first, I want us to at least to lay a foundation for our listeners and viewers who may not know too much about this conflict. And I'll start with Dr. Sylvie. This whole Iranian US Israeli conflict, what is it? What is this whole thing about?
Okay, so if you look at the Middle East for the past decade, people think the war is actually religious based, but it is not. It is actually about the oil resources that these countries around that Gulf region possess. And you know, America has this sort of interest in natural resources. And here, let me say that the difference between America and China is that China uses what is called cooperative arrangement to come after your resources. They know that they have to give something in order to get what you have. America, most of the time, if you study the political economy trajectory of such a country and how their international policies, they use bullying. And so if they bully you and then you kowtow, they even praise you that you are the most beautiful country in the world, you are peaceful, you are interested in human rights and all of that. Once you stand up to their bullying, they start painting you. So if you look at Trump's speeches over the past few weeks, before even the war erupted, he started by accusing Iranians that, they are into weapons of mass destruction, which is a threat to the world and then to the American people. Then later he came back and then gave another reason that there is some sort of oppressive leadership over there, human rights abuse. I mean, similar to what they thinking about Gaddafi. And so they were using that as a reason to go for. But there is a historical antecedent, my brother. You know, in the past decade, America and Iran were having a very good relationship because they once had a leader who actually kowtowed to the bullying of, the Americans. Then it got to a point where there was a transition, which is the supreme leader who just passed on. He, that religious kind of discipline, I would not say religious, but I would say cultural discipline, decided that they are going to restrict certain activities or behavior of the citizenry, because the time that America was in great cahoot with the then leadership, people can go to just a secular society like what we see in Ghana. You can go to Labadi Beach and see people wearing bikinis and women wearing whatever they want to wear to public places and all of that. Now, this supreme leader who was just killed recently, or assassinated recently, came and changed all of that, and then also decided to stand up to America. But before then, Israel has also been having this issue long ago with Iran. And so the war actually has some sort of historical antecedent. And Iran is one of the major oil producers in the world. And if you look at the international oil trade, even the transportation or the shipping of oil, the Strait of Hormuz, you see that about 20 to 22% of the world oil passes there and all of that. So even in America, Congress yesterday, I was watching CNN, was against the war in the first place, and the rationale behind Putin's kind of mindset to even perpetrate this particular war. So they started bombing, Iran somewhere. Today's week is when they started attack. They invaded there and then killed the supreme leader and leading officials of Iran.
Yeah. And
Israel was also doing their own thing. And then afterwards, Iran decided to retaliate by bombing all the military bases in that particular region, to the extent that even brother or sister nations who are also Arabian nations like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai, and all of that have also been affected, because Iran was of the view that these are brothers and sisters who are supposed to, also uphold the culture and the liberty of the Arabian region, but they are actually in bed with America, giving them their spaces to be able to, for America to be able to use it and then attack them. So the war is actually not religious, but it is actually economic and then also natural resource kind of issues that has actually brought the whole thing, up to this particular end. So I don't know if I can go ahead and talk about the fact that how it will affect Ghana and the rest of the world.
But even before that, you see that the Israelis have also argued that they are not really after the resources, but they are. It's a preemptive strike to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and resources. What do you say to that?
My brother, if you look at the national treaty about the possession and manufacturing of nuclear weapons, Iran has signed to that international treaty. Israel has not. And this has been confirmed by the Congress, the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate have some of the senators, and then, their previous war, military officials, some of them have come up to say that Iran, what Trump was saying and what Israel is saying about possession of destruction, a weapon of mass destruction, it's actually not the case. Iran doesn't have that. But Israel has, nuclear weapons. America has it. Iran doesn't have it. So these are some of the lies that they peddle, just to justify their actions. As for Israel, like I said, years ago, they have had this particular war with Iran, Palestine, and all, and all of that, hoping that for them, they don't deserve to be there. Israel wants to claim superpower in that particular region. And so, as a result of that, for them, this thing has been, if you remember last year, June, the fight started, or the war started, and then it actually lasted for almost, 12 days or so, almost 2 weeks. Yeah. I stand to be corrected. Doc can correct me if I'm not getting it right. And then, at that time, look, Israel was using America's defense system to defend themselves, and the Iranians were depleting that. That's when Trump came in and called for ceasefire. So now, if you remember, the reason I'm saying oil is because look at Venezuela. Yeah. Venezuela has oil resources worth about 3 trillion or trillions of barrels of oil. They invaded there, arrested the president, toppled the government of that particular country, and then took the president to their country. And now America is the one controlling that particular resource. But the same in terms of resources, the reason I said China uses cooperative model is that China is having a fair trade deal with Iran and all the countries within that region in order to get oil for their economy. You understand? Yeah. And so this assumption that Iran is actually into manufacturing and possession of weapons of mass destruction is actually not the case. And it has been confirmed by even the U.S. Senate itself and some of the veteran, military officials of U.S. Hello?
Yeah, hello, Dr. Sibi.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I thought I went offline. So that is the situation on ground. So the reason and the rationale for they invading Iran in the first place was actually non-existent. It was completely lie. And as I speak to you, this dawn I was watching CNN, and I think the Americans are calling for the fact that they should restrict Trump of resources, in terms of budget, because the war that is ongoing. In a day, there is a think tank in U.S. that has done some sort of rough estimate, and they are saying that a day, since the war started, a day, America is losing about $850 million just to go after this particular war, and that is not cool. That is not cool at all.
Interesting, but again, why it's? What's the history of alliance between the Americans and the Israelis? Why are they backing the Israelis?
Israel and America have been exchanging technology in the, for the past years or decades or whatever you can say. Israel and America have been exchanging kind of technology when it comes to modern technology in terms of development, and then technology in terms of war and all of that. They have been exchanging that. And then also, if you recall, America sees itself as a Christian kind of nation, and then Israel also seems to have that particular kind of alliance, and so they think, I mean, it's more or less they feel like they wear the same shirt, and therefore they can collaborate. And then, as I said, America has used over the years, over the past decade, Israel as a conduit to have access to that particular region. It's, if you look at the 1991 or so, the war at Kuwait, when they went after the leadership of, I think when Saddam Hussein of Iraq wanted to go after Kuwait. I mean, Kuwait is one of the richest countries in terms of oil.
Yeah.
So America used Israel as a conduit to be able to go after Saddam Hussein in order to get access to Kuwait oil and all of that. So that particular alliance has been there in terms of war and exchange of technology.
I see. But now, in looking at the nature of this particular war, ongoing war, you'd see that this is not your usual war. I mean, where they'll send in troops and they'll be there using firing their guns and all that. This particular war, we see that is really a technological war, where you see one country seated in a convoy of their country, use drones, target their particular spots, release it, and it goes to hit. So in as much as it's a war, to these countries, it feels like playing a video game, if I'm to put in those very loose terms. You sit somewhere, click on a button, aim, and you shoot. Now, should some of us in these parts of the world, should we all not be worried or alarmed? Because then it means that if all they just need is just position the missile to our countries, and the ballistic missiles will be coming to us. Shouldn't we be afraid?
Yeah, your point is right. I would say we have to be, of high concern about that. You see, technology has actually entered every facet of our lives. Even in business, these days you can use AI to do a lot of marketing activities, do product design, product development, production, and all of that. Likewise, every aspect in agriculture, there's technology over there. Security also, is taking advantage of technology. These days, it is too unsophisticated to send troops to physically engage in exchange of gun bullets and all of that. This time, if you look at Russia is the only country that has intercontinental ballistic missiles. They can stay in their country and shoot any other or bomb or destroy any other country without even taking their aircraft and load their military officers to go and invade that particular country. China has this FS-51, that also can be used within 20 minutes to reach any part of the world and then bomb. So the point is, and your question, that is why I agree with you. What is Africa also doing? We sit on the bench hoping that nothing will happen. But you see, until the world comes to an end, you cannot predict. You and I, one day we shall die and go. The generations that will come, are they going to face similar challenge? Remember, years ago, America came to build their military base. I don't know whether they have moved it or not, in the days of our former President Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
And it became a whole lot of banter here. I was telling somebody yesterday that, look at this. If Ghana were to be a bit closer to Iran, America would have made the same call they made to UK, that they want to use their military base, for which Iran went to bomb that particular place. You understand? So, as a country, as a continent in Africa, we need to be concerned that we need to ensure that we invest heavily in our defense system, very, very heavily in our defense system. I don't know whether Ghana has this air defense system. I don't know whether we have some of these intercontinental ballistic missiles or these ballistic missiles that these people are using and all of that. I don't know whether we have invested in that. But I think it is a call for us also to ensure that a chunk or a significant portion of our budget is invested in such a sector, so that we also arm ourselves, because China years ago was a developing nation like Ghana. If they can grow and develop and even think of building such Recently, they did their parade, and my brother, it was huge.
Yeah.
If you look at the ammunitions and the weapons these people have been able to acquire in their possession in defense of their country, then I said, as Africans, we are jokers. Look at Traore, look at the Malian leader and the other leaders who have toppled the democratic dispensation of their countries and have taken over. They don't have these weapons. You understand? I don't think they possess it. It's because of UN treaties and all of that. That is why their oppressors like the French and the rest have not been able to invade there and then attack them as we are seeing in the Middle East. So it's a concern, my brother, I agree with you 150%. It's a concern for Africans to also think, of acquiring some of these things, not with the notion that we are prepared for war, but in defense, because nobody knows. For example, if Iran wants to or America wants to attack us, they only have to hit our two harbors and then our airport. That is it. We are down. We are down. So we need to have those defense systems in our possession or in our custody. Have some of these missiles over there, because this time it is too barbaric to send military officers to go and then exchange bullets, and then nobody would do that. Nobody. If you look at the Russian-Ukraine war, that has been the process, the modus operandi. The Russians would drop a missile, the Iranians would also reply or respond to that and all of that. But we don't have. I don't know. Maybe I stand to be educated. I don't know whether we have some of these things in our possession. If we don't, it's a wake-up call for us to be able to acquire some of these things in defense of our people and then our property as a nation.
But on this call you're making, you had earlier alluded to the fact that the Americans even tell us that each day of their war costs them in excess of $850 million. Do we have this money to invest into our defense that much? Because then in building our defense system as strong to withstand these shocks, I mean, definitely the figures will be extremely high. Do we have that money? Or if we have that money, is that the most economic way we can spend our money?
Well, if you look at our foreign policy as a country, I'm talking of Ghana.
Yeah.
We don't take sides. And so we are at peace with every nation on this planet. So if I say we should invest in that, it's not to engage in war. But it's just like you being in your home. Why will you want to have a dog in your house, a security dog in your house? Of course, the money you will use to even acquire and feed that particular dog also has some sort of, alternative use, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is essential for you to have such a dog. Or maybe you may have a licensed pistol in your possession, in defense. That money could have been used to acquire certain things. However, you feel like in defense of yourself and then your family, you need to have such a thing in your possession. So having it doesn't mean that we are going to use it for the $850 million that the think tank in the U.S. is saying. It's as a result of the current war and the defense system that they are using. Because if you look at the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier, for instance, it was manufactured at a cost of $13 billion United States dollars. Just, for bombs, that one, according to the statistics, the bombs that the Iranians use, one will take $20,000 US to manufacture. They used it 4 of that to destroy that particular, carrier. So if Trump did not go for such a war, that particular $13 billion asset would have been intact. So these are the estimates that they are doing. We are not going to do anything of such in terms of engaging in war, but it's for defense. For example, look at the piracy that happened in Winneba recently. Our fishermen were attacked. You remember? I don't know if you got the news. These are some of the things we need to put in place. I'm sure those pirates were not that sophisticated. That is why we're able to, within the swift movement, we're able to apprehend them or secure the area and then protect our people and escorted them back home peacefully, where we did not even record any casualty, except that they lost some of their assets in terms of outboard motors and all of that. You understand? So in defense, we need to spend, and it's a gradual process. We can't invest. China started in gradual process. China started, and we have a very good relationship with China. We need to also have a discussion in that direction. That how can they help us? If China can give us grants and loans to be able to do some of these, road infrastructure and all of that, we can also talk to them to share some of these technologies for us. Look, this war that is ongoing, security experts are saying that secretly China is even weaponizing Iran with, with sophisticated military intelligence. That is why they are more or less winning the war. If you look at the stories, the news that is coming out, Iran is also actually, on top of the game. It's because aside the oil trade that they have with China, they have also been able to have, some sort of bilateral relationship in security matters. And so it doesn't spoil the soup that we have to tend to look at, look in that in such a direction. It's very, very key. But as for the budget, no matter what, we have to spend, in some of these things. This security is also an essential service. Last week I made mention of that. It's an essential service, both interior or internal and then external. They are all essential service. We need to ensure that we acquire certain military or security technologies that will put this country at a high level of defense, not in terms of being offensive, but at being at the defense of your people and then your country. That is what I'm trying to say, my brother.
Absolutely. I'll turn to Dr. Nunu now. And Dr. Nunu, the U.S. has called on the Iranians to back down on their attack. The Iranian government, I think yesterday also, they issued a statement indicating that they are going to fight this to their grave. Now, we know that the Iranians also, at least, they control about 12% of the world oil. Now, with this going, and there are reports indicating that, in the Middle East region, the price of oil has started going up. What does this mean for Africa?
Well, it means that we now have to plan well and always make ourselves ready for external shocks, because we are open. We are very much open. And it's almost as if we behave like we are a closed economy. We do not have any nation in the world that is closed. But Ghana is extremely open. So whatever happens externally affects us. And that is something we must look at. Here we have about 5 weeks cover for oil. We have stocks that can cover us for 5 weeks or so. But I'm not too sure whether this war will end anytime soon. However, funnily, let me say to Dr. Esufi that he's been asking whether we have intercontinental ballistic weapons or something of the sort. What we have is spiritual one. Here we have spiritual ones. Ours is you can shoot it from one continent to another continent without any visibility.
But look at our spiritual one, it doesn't transcend the Ghanaian border. It's intra.
I agree. No, my brother, it can transcend. It can transcend.
Well, anyway, so I think that if this war must drag on, then it would definitely affect us. We do not refine enough oil to be able to cater for ourselves. We depend on external global prices, exchange rates. They say are the major things that affect even our pricing, which means that anything that affects global price would affect Ghana and Africa as a continent. And so for me, we have to pray that this war wouldn't drag on for a long time, because if it does, we would definitely feel it. And global price has already started going up. Brent crude price has increased by about 8 to 10%. It means that if we exhaust our stocks now, we are going to feel the impact of it. And I must also say that there is something I do not really get. You see, Ghana, we don't seem to be aligning strictly. U.S. has its base here. U.S. is a friend to Israel. But it is possible that Israel could deal with that mercilessly. The reason I'm saying that is that recently when Israel had issues, we criticized it and they rebutted. Even when America attacked Iran on the first occasion, we condemned their action. But they have their military base here. So I think we have a very confusing foreign policy. I'm not too sure what the strategy is, because you cannot live without a strategy. We seem to be friends with everybody, and we seem to be we seem to condemn easily when even our friends take actions. In the past, President Tata Mills made us know that we have to mind our own business. I'm not too sure whether that was a better strategy than what we are seeing now, because some are of the view that even the what happened to our base in Lebanon could be coming from Israel, but we do not have much information. But the fact that it happened on even our day of independence also is quite intriguing, arouses curiosity. So probably the government must come clear. If you are a friend to US and US is embarking on a war, do you still have to condemn US? I mean, these are, because then you could be left in the middle. Israel, because if we were close to, we happen to be in the Middle East, like Dr. Stifu was saying, probably we could have had our fair share of the blast. Except that where we are, probably they do not have interest in us. But of course, we have American base. What about if they miss target and it affects our airport or something? So I think we must also be strategic and be careful how we mingle in these global issues. Otherwise, we do not. I can tell you that I'm not too sure Ghana has any anti-air missile or aircraft thing. I mean, our system is porous. I am not too sure we can even detect submarine at a distance from our marine space. So we have to be very careful. I mean, we all know ourselves, even Galamsey, to fight Galamsey, we are struggling. Galamsey, we are not using any sophisticated weapons. And it's dragging on. Look, just recently when Namos was attacked, I mean, they were running for their lives. And we had soldiers and police and our security agencies, officers from our security agencies in there. So I think that we do not have the capacity to wage any serious war. And so we have to tread cautiously. And that is just by the way. But for the oil and its global impact, I'm not too sure Africa will be exempted, because we are very open. We are highly dependent on import. Everything we do import. And so, yes, probably we may zoom into the economic impact properly. However, I think that even with the oil itself, if this war must drag on for a long time, we are going to see a surge on our domestic front, because we do import refined oil, and what happens globally would have impact on that. And for now, U.S. has promised that they are going to man the Strait of Hormuz, but Iran is also proving that they have the muscle to disturb the system. So for now, we cannot vouch for the safety of passage on that strait. My only hope is that America will do as they are saying, by bringing their warships and planes to guard the place, so that there could be safe passage. And that is also to say, if Iran does not surprise us, because they've proven that they have some underground armories that they are using and shooting from. If that's the case, it means that America doesn't even have full control of the full capacity of Iran's military. And that is something we must not lose sight of. Yes, everybody knows that America is a superpower. They are very powerful. But Iran has also proven, because once they can penetrate Israel's defense system and even blast America's own bases in strategic positions, then it means that Iran ordinarily is not a joke. And so if America is saying that they are going to man the Strait of Hormuz, we must only hope that that will be it. Otherwise, anything at all could happen.
Interesting. But then now if we look into the resources in Africa, do you think we have enough oil on this continent that we can decide that now we're going to be inward looking to tap into our own resources, so that we can be insulated from these external shocks?
Yes, we do have. As for the resource deposit, no doubt. What I think will be the challenge is that the agreement we already have concerning these deposits and the capacity to refine. Because in the case of Ghana, we are looking at TOR, for example. Do we say that TOR has the capacity to refine all that we need? And Ghana gas, can they generate enough gas to power our electricity and all that we need? These are the questions we need to answer. And also, what is the share distribution? Do we have other nationals, other firms, foreign firms, expatriates operating there? These are all things we need to consider, because it doesn't take just a day to say that I'm going to be self-sufficient. No. If you have agreements, you must respect the agreement. And so we need to look at, because it will surprise you to know, just I think years ago, I did a research with Nana Janto, of formerly of Israel FM, for Dutch Welle television. We went to Anglo Gold and other mining firms. We were looking at their impact on the lives of the people there in that community, in the communities hosting the mining firms. And then we also looked at the distribution of the benefits, how much goes to Menshia, how much goes to the government, and how much is supposed to be used for local development. And I can tell you that it was that pathetic. If you look at how much we were giving to those our partners, sorry, how much we were giving to those our partners, and how much we were retaining as a nation, and how much was, in fact, very, very pathetic. You could see that people were just taking our resources away just like that, blatantly. And so I think we need to look at the various agreements we have had in the past, and that are still in force, and our capacity. And if you ask me, I would say that we cannot do that, not within the next 2 months. It will take some time to build the necessary capacity to be able to be self-sufficient. And it will also take probably further exploration, because we left the exploration into the hands of foreigners who invested that into shares and are now partners we cannot easily discard.
But now that you bring in the argument of agreements and our capacity, then are we not doomed? Because even if we use a Ghanaian example, I don't think Ghana obtains more than 20% in its oil reserves. I mean, and that's even being very optimistic. And we barely do have the capacity to man our oil reserves by ourselves. If that's the case, then I know it replicates across the continent. If that's the case, are we not doomed? Because that means that we have our own resource, but there's nothing we can do.
Yes, as for being doomed, whatever happens, the slightest shock globally, we are doomed. You remember COVID-19, remember Ukraine war. I mean, Ukraine war didn't have to do with oil, yet it was a big deal for us. Yes, according to the past government. But you see, I also think that that passes through the Strait of Hormuz is about 20% of global oil. 20%. It means that we still have about 80% of oil being safe, except that from the way they are now blasting other Kuwait and the likes, that could move away, even expand beyond what happens to the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, but ordinarily we were expecting that at least 20% of oil, global oil, will be affected. That notwithstanding, it is enough to cause a change. But that notwithstanding, I think that what we have to pray for is that we have a ceasefire. I mean, the war ceases, or probably America is able to man the Strait of Hormuz. Otherwise, like you are saying, we are doomed. But then, it shouldn't be surprising, because as for us, Africa, the slightest thing affects us. Tell me, even COVID-19, we have funds, we have grants, we had COVID-19 funds, but we still manage to disturb ourselves through and anything that happens, people take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you cannot tell me that there's COVID-19 and everything became a mess. Right from after COVID-19, we're experiencing, even at a point we were close to a negative growth rate. Nothing was happening. Meanwhile, other nations experienced it and went through it successfully. So what happened to Ghana? Now, let's talk about the Russia-Ukraine war. What bit did it have to do with us to disturb us to that extent? Yes, I will not rule the fact that it had implications on our economy. But I mean, the extent of the magnitude of it, the way we were blaming everything, to the extent that even in 2022, we were giving head cuts, not paying bonds and all of those things, and blaming it on Ukraine. I mean, so it only tells you that as for Ghana, the slightest external shock will disturb our economy. And this is no surprise. This is no surprise to us. We just have to pray that, since the government is saying that we have 5 weeks of oil cover, I mean, the war should not drag beyond that. And now Trump says that he's interested in who even becomes a leader there. My prayer is that they find a way out of involving him, because I think now he wants to be a kingmaker there. So they should probably grant him that position, and we can all have our peace in the world. But Ghana going forward, we must be careful how we speak on the international front. We must be very strategic with our foreign policy, because the way and manner we easily condemn and we easily come out, because not too long ago we had issues with Israel. I think our foreign ministry had issue with Israel. There were these exchanges, and then not too long ago, it started off with some payment. One American senator was saying that we should make, and there was a rebuttal, and it was back and forth, and then condemning America. We should be very careful. That is what I can say. We should be very, very careful.
But interestingly, at least the Minister of Foreign Affairs has treaded cautiously. I think the only release I've seen has been the attack on the gunbat, the UN forces in Lebanon. But still looking at our economic reserves and looking at the fact that we are close to being doomed. Because international relations too can be very funny. Some people have called on, as you're doing now, that we should we should tread cautiously. Should Ghana make some alliance with some, or let me say African countries make some alliances to at least keep us insulated in all of this? Because we are only hoping the war is going to end soon. But Iran is also suggesting that they are also not going to back down. They have also given us an indication that they have the wherewithal to fight boot for boot. Will any alliance help us, or what can we do to help us?
I must say, in fact, that we are aligned. It is as if Ghana is not aligned, but we seem to be too gentle, and I don't know. You see, let me give you an example. I think in about in the year 2016, I was with the election task force in Asante region. We were going around. We had some well-armed. They were armed to the teeth. Police, soldiers, and other fire service and immigration were in a group. I mean, we're in two groups in these military cars, monitoring the elections in some flagship areas, some hot zones, and something happened. There was a serious confusion in one of the zongos in Asante region. My team happened to be there. And then suddenly there were exchanges, gun, shot, and the like. So I ran away. Got myself some fufu and slept. The next day, I went back, because the reason I ran away was that they all had guns. I was only reporting, like writing. So I only had my pen and paper. But the rest of my team had guns. So I felt that, no, let me just run away. So I ran away. Now, the next day I went back, and they told me that running away was more dangerous than staying there. So next time I should not run. And that was my first time I was moving with such a team. So since then, even if we fell into confusion, I just stayed, because I was made aware that if anything happened, because they were armed, they could cover me. But running away, I could have run into problems. So I should not do that again. And I listened to that. What I mean is that you might think that you are playing it safe, but your safe grounds could rather be more dangerous. So if you think that you are aligning with America, you just align and keep quiet. Because sometimes it's very funny. I was just asking myself that, look, when America attacked Iran and we condemned America, could it have been the same if we were attacked? If, let's say, Russia attacked Ghana, would Iran condemn Russia? Maybe they would not even have interest in this. I mean, they would just write us off. We wouldn't have been a part of their problems. So my point is, this thing we do for nations, will they do the same? And to what extent? So I am not saying that it was wrong, but I have this personal principle that if you don't have the capacity, if you don't have the muscle, just shut up. So that if something is going on in Ghana, and I am in JHS. At that age, in that capacity, if it doesn't bother on the youth, it doesn't concern. I mean, what can I do? So sometimes you say things to bring problems to yourself when you do not really have the capacity to act. If America is condemning, yeah, they do have the capacity to act. And sometimes it is obvious that something is so obvious that well-meaning nations must condemn. But when a nation has its base on your soil and you are condemning it, I don't really get it. Because you could do it in a very diplomatic way, or you could be, there are so many ways of, they say, killing a cat. So there are ways you could do it. But, I mean, condemning them. And now people even get suspicious whether because we are friends with a nation like Burkina Faso, because after their coup, during our inauguration or whatever, when we were inducting our president, they were here. And the friendship is on. And we know Burkina Faso and Mali are now aligned. They seem to be aligning with Russia.
Yeah.
So it gets really confusing what our monetary policy, our foreign policy is. I'm not saying the government is doing anything wrong, but all that I'm saying is that because we don't have the capacity to really stand on our own and fight, we should be very careful. I mean, if it does not concern us, that is what President Atamel said, and people did not understand him. Because at the time, we did not have any, as we speak now, like my brother, Dr. Esifu was saying, we don't know these weapons they are using. Even AK-47, we are using very old ones. Our officers are using very old AK-47. And these days, it's not about being a macho man. Like our military people are running around, going to the gym. Look, America does not need your muzzle. They only need your intelligence. And weapons, I mean, these days, you don't need human beings, physical human beings, except probably when they want to confiscate something, like they went and arrested Venezuela's president. That is when you need. But in most cases, it's about technology. And do we have it? No, we don't. We should not kid ourselves. We should not. We are all in Ghana here. We know our capacity. We know how our military people struggle, even to keep peace. Boku. It's difficult for us to even bring peace. So we should not behave like we can engage in some major war with any nation, or if there is any problem against us, we can handle it. We should just tread cautiously. We should just tread cautiously. That is my view. However, as we progress through time, we must be building enough buffers, enough stocks, whatever it is. If it is gold, we have to build enough. Like just recently, I heard that the finance minister hopes that Ghana will build about 15-month cover through the domestic gold purchasing program, which is very, very good. If we're able to build strong buffers, then some of these shocks can easily be dealt with by us.
Right. Intriguingly, you rightfully mentioned on the buffers what we can do. I'm going to take a very short break here. When we come back, we're going to have, maybe on the last segment, you're going to be discussing what Ghana or Africa we can do in the wake of all of this, especially where we realize we don't have military strength. If the war does not come to an end, we are going to be in big trouble. But from our end, building our economies or building our economic state, what can we start doing? What measures can we start putting in place? Because it looks like these wars are going to be a bit more frequent. Looking at just the recent years, you can tell that there's still a lot ahead of us. What can we do as an African state so that eventually we can wean off these shocks or these pressures from these foreign powers who are having their own field day? It's still a focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. We'll take a very short breather here. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. But you can send in your contribution or your question to our WhatsApp line 0544321019, 0544321019, or 0303956641. Do not go away.
In the heart of Accra, nestled in the vibrant neighborhood of East Legon and New Beacon, a 360 multimedia farmhouse emerged. Introducing Z Multimedia with a steadfast focus on lifestyle,
Many thanks for joining us and for staying with us to the Focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. If you're just joining us, we've been having a conversation about Ghana's 69, global tensions, and Ghana's economic resilience. We have been looking at what does Iran and Israel and American war means to us as Africans. Let me turn to Dr. Sylvie. So, Doctor, with all that we have said, all we have seen, all we see going on, and as I said, I do not think this is going to be the last. There's still a lot more in store. What should we do as an African people, especially a people where we have all the resources with us, but we seem not to know what to do, and we have to rely on external parties? Now that our external parties are at loggerheads, or there seems to be a lot of tension, we down here, what do you think we should start doing? Even if it's for the next 10 years, what should we start doing from today?
Thank you very much, my brother. Before I go on to respond to that, I have just received some information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I have a friend there, and it's in line with what me and Dr. Lundu were saying in terms of our foreign policy directions when it comes to tensions around the world. So if you will permit me, I can just read it.
Sure, please do.
Yeah. Official government positions call for de-escalation and diplomacy. The government of Ghana has formally urged all parties involved in the conflict to de-escalate tensions and return to diplomatic negotiations. Key elements of Ghana's position include, I beg your pardon, urgent dialogue and peaceful settlement of disputes, calling for protection of civilian lives and infrastructure, encouraging a return to diplomatic engagement rather than military escalation, warning about broader regional and global economic consequences. And so beyond that, the person is telling me that over the week, I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has had a separate meetings with the ambassadors or high commissioners of these respective countries. And so I think the meeting was about the fact that Ghanaian citizens in such areas will be protected, and also calling upon them to go back to the negotiation tables using diplomatic means. So I think me and Dr. Nunu are not far from what we were saying. The point is that as a nation so vulnerable security-wise, you need to tread cautious. Me, I would say that in situations like this, you don't talk. And when you don't talk, your silence means that you are non-aligned with any party. Because the moment you take stance, you become an enemy of the one that you spoke against. And that actually does not do well for you as a nation. Because when two elephants are fighting, it's only the grass that suffers. And so we need to tread cautiously. So that is the information. But to your point, or to your question, what should Africans do in order to avert the consequences or the impact of such international escalations? You know, we have been talking about Africans uniting amongst ourselves and trading amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
And then removing borders across Africa and allow free flow of citizens and then goods and services. That is the only way out. You know, domestically, I will add to what Dr. Mimi said. My brother, on daily basis, Ghana consumes about 130,000 to 150,000 barrels of petroleum products. Ghana consumes that. And if you look at domestically, how much Tama oil refinery can actually refine. Tama oil refinery can only refine 45,000. But even that 45,000, we have just started, and so we can't see whether it is sustainable or not. Dr. Nunu was talking about how much oil reserves that we have for the past week. I also heard the energy minister, or I think the CEO of the National Petroleum Authority, coming out and saying that we have about 6 weeks stock. That is not enough. I can tell you emphatically that this particular war is not going to end soon, because the United Nations has kept quiet. America is engaging in war crimes because they are even killing civilians, women, especially women and children. You remember, last Saturday, their hate also entered in a certain school, and then about 120 children were killed in Iran. And the United Nations has not stated anything. And so that war crime going on, that is what is making Iran angry enough to say that they are not going to back down. And once they are not going to back down, there will be continuous retaliation. And so, as Africans, as a nation, Ghana, we need to also forecast that this war is not going to end soon, unless both parties have agreed to come back to the negotiation table and then call for peace. Until then, we should rather anticipate that it's going to linger on for a little while. And so, we need to ensure that, the essential commodities every African country relies on is energy and food. We need to ensure that in terms of energy, Ghana, we don't have that capacity to even refine the daily consumption quantity that we need. And so we need to have, or beyond this particular war, we should have a long-term plan to either expand the capacity of TOR to about 70% of petroleum products that we consume as a nation, or we need to have any other alternative means. Nigeria is an oil country. They have a refinery. In fact, Dangote has built a big refinery over there. We are also oil refiners. We are brothers. And you see the way we make fun, we tease ourselves when it comes to Ghana, Jollof, and we have a very good brotherly relationship. What can we do as neighboring countries to ensure that our energy sector is secured for us? We need to think of that. In terms of food production, my brother, is so sad in this country, especially Ghana, that with all the fertile soil the Almighty God has endowed this country with, we can't even produce maize to meet the daily consumption. As I speak to you, go and check the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. They are database. A large quantity of maize we consume in this country are imported. Tomatoes, we import them from Burkina Faso. Onions, we import them from Burkina Faso. Yam, we import them from Burkina Faso. So that tells you that even food sufficiency, food self-sufficiency, we are not yet there. Rice, your guess is as good as mine. Vegetable oil, meat, and fish. And then, of course, chicken is part of meat. So all these things are imported. So the impact is going to be very huge. And in this country, if petroleum prices go up, it affects almost every aspect of the economy.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that you do without transportation. And so, as Africans, your question about what can we do? Africa Continental Free Trade, area is there. What are we doing to optimize the benefits or to optimize the benefits of such, a zone? We need to ensure that the call by the first president of this country, that Africa must see itself as one country, with one focus, with one agenda, and then that brotherliness, we go back to it and ensure that we trade heavily amongst ourselves. Who told you that we cannot trade even in terms of gold amongst ourselves? We can do that. Energy sector, crude oil, we can do that because not all African countries are oil-producing countries. And we have huge comparative advantage. Where Ghana is weak, other countries on the African continent are strong in that regard. And where those countries are also weak, Ghana is strong in that regard. Can we exchange that benefit amongst ourselves and trade freely without these restrictions on our borders? Of course, if we do that and we don't do that cautiously, the terrorists can also take advantage of that free port, free border relationship, and then perpetrate their kind of agenda. But as Africans, we need to have that particular mindset that we will trade amongst ourselves first before we can think of even going outside the distance. Nigeria is now doing very well in terms of rice production. Burkina Faso is doing very well in terms of tomatoes, pepper, onions, and the rest. If you go to Sierra Leone, they have their strength. Ghana, we also have our strength. What are we doing amongst ourselves? That's just common chicken. We have to import it from the US. Are we saying that as Africans, no country has that capacity and the strength to do that? Ghana can do it. We have deliberately killed all the poultry farmers, poultry farm companies in this country. My brother, you remember all of us growing up, we had Akoko Dako, right?
Yeah.
Akoko whatever, and all of that. And then there are other poultry farmers, I'm sure Dr. Mino is also aware of them, in the country. Then I don't think we should make it, sound like it's just a mess slogan as we are doing. We need to see it as a major transformational tool for our chicken consumption sector. I am happy the president said they are building in Hisona, that they are building a chicken or poultry processing factory. If that is true and they are really serious about it, as a matter of urgency, we need to go back to that. Because the war that is going on, it is not only the crude that is going to affect, it is going to affect other essential commodities that Ghana imports or Africans will import as a continent. So we need to ensure that we trade. We need to ensure that domestically we produce what we consume and consume what we produce. It is very, very key. And what is going on? It will affect our inflation and our macroeconomic indicators. Because if you look at over the years, and Dr. Nunu will bear with, our inflation has been hugely important. Everything, almost everything we consume in this country, we import them. And when you are importing them, what do? You need to change your local currency into the foreign currency before you can import that. And that puts a downward pressure on your local currency because you are demanding more of the forex. And so when that one happens, the exchange rate will begin to escalate, and that one will transition into inflation or commodity prices, which will then shoot up our food inflation, thereby making our headline inflation go higher. And so these things, I was telling a friend yesterday that this government has done well by bringing stability, but if we don't take care as a country, this war that has started will make everything that we have, every success that we have chalked over the past 1 year go into the drain because we have not been able to build a lot of reserves. Look, the exchange rate that has gone down is because of the Bank of Ghana intervention, hugely because of that. If you remember, our gold reserve, 18 points, was used last year, sold last year, just to ensure that the economy is stable. We have enough forex in the system. Now, the 18 pounds, we don't have that much again. It is now that gold board is embarking on massive gold purchases in the country. You understand? So you ask yourself, for how long will Ghana continue, or will Bank of Ghana continue to shore up our, our forex demand sector to ensure that there is a stability in the exchange rate trajectory or dynamics? We need to ask ourselves, the only way we can sustain that is to improve production, domestic production. And I express a bit of disappointment. I'm not saying that the big push that the government is pursuing this year is bad, but I was thinking that this year we should have been a major investment in the agricultural sector. It is key because food alone, Dr. Lulu and myself and yourself can testify that if we look at our domestic budget monthly, a bigger share of our domestic budget goes into food, followed by rent. What are we doing about it? Then communication and transportation will follow. What are we doing as a country to ensure that we improve on our food production sector? I traveled to Sunyani at the very early part of this year. And then I realized that beans, cowpea, has been produced in the excess and they don't get tired. What is Ghana Buffer Store Company doing? Because the essence of establishing that is to buy the surplus in the market, store them in order to stabilize the price, and in future when we go into scarcity or shortage in the market, they push whatever is in stock into the market to stabilize prices. What are we doing about that? Now, Buffer Stock, a company, has become a hub of hoarding pre-estate food stuff and all of that. That idea behind it is almost going down the drain. And so, as a country and as a continent called Africa, we have a lot to do. We need to, that African unity, it's not just about African heads of state going to meet Georgia and then appoint one of them to become the African Union chairman or what have you. The African Union, the idea behind the call for African Union by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, followed by Nelson Mandela, was about the fact that Africa will become with different federal systems. I'm not saying we should go, but the idea behind is what I'm trying to put out. So that a Nigerian friend or a Nigerian businessman who wants, let's say, salt from Ghana can freely move across the border to come and pick it and use the truck, move it to Nigeria. If we need maybe some additional gas or petroleum products to show up what we have in order to stabilize our consumption, stabilize prices, internally, we can freely move to Nigeria and get it. If it is tomato, we can go there. Burkina Faso can come here for energy, electricity, freely, without these restrictions at the border and extortion and all of that. Harassing our businessmen and women who trade along the borders and all of that. That doesn't help. And so we need to be very futuristic as a continent. And then move away from this myopic idea of, wanting to be a leader ad hoc for ceremonial leader. I call them ceremonial leaders, without thinking of how Africa can harness, collectively our natural resources, trade among ourselves, and ensure that individual economies on the African continent find themselves in a regime where we can say we are fairly liberated from external shocks. And if I say external shocks, I'm talking about from Europe, from the Asia, and from the Americas and all of that, and from the Gulf region, the Arabian regions and all of that. We need to focus. So in terms of what we can do, we need to build buffer, as Dr. Mimi said. And how we build a buffer, we need to trade amongst ourselves. We need to ensure that food sufficiency is on the highest pedestal, on top of the agenda or policy agenda list of every government. Let us produce what we eat, let us produce what we consume, and consume what we produce domestically. And the taste for international something, foreign products, we need to find a way to curtail it. No, of course, we are on a global village, so we can't say that we will not allow any other commodity to come from the external, into the African region. But we can control it. In China, there is not every commodity that you can export there. They only allow things that they don't produce over there to enter their market. Anything that is produced within China, the government of China has ensured that it is highly prohibited. You can't bring it there because they fear competition against the local company. What are we doing here? We have rice farmers here, and we allow businessmen, based on their parochial interest, to import cheap produced rice, which has been stored more than 5 years, and bring them into the country, just to make the whole market very highly competitive for our local producers. And I don't think it augurs well, I think, for us as a nation.
Absolutely. Let me turn to Dr. Nunu, and I think that can also qualify as your final words. What we can do as a country, as a continent, looking at all of this happening, looking into our future, what must we start doing so that now, after a while, we shouldn't be too concerned about some people in some other continents fighting?
Yeah, so we need to really attempt to domesticate. It shouldn't be just this song we sing, like "Buy Made in Ghana Goose," "Buy Made in Ghana Goose." That song needs a remix, because we've been singing it when I was a kid. Right from GHS, we've been singing the song "Buy Made in Ghana Goose," and it's not yielding the right result. So I think that we also need to make a remix of it that would incorporate the angle of production. We need to improve upon the quality of it, because see, the average Ghanaian is rational. So if you, as you are interviewing us, you bought a shoe from Makola or Kejetia, and then it rained, and the leather just started peeling off, and then you bought another from Italy, it rained, nothing happened. I can tell you that next time, if you had the means, you buy the Italian shoe and forget about the Ghanaian shoe. So yes, China had to sacrifice, buy their own products until they got it. So we are also saying that we should buy our own products until we get there. But our producers must not trick us. Our producers must improve on their art. Look, if you are a producer in Ghana, like just recently what happened to even chips, plantain chips, I was seeing in social media, I don't want to repeat it to disturb anybody's business, but what I was seeing on social media, that those who fry plantain, the kind of things they do, and sometimes it's quite pathetic. You might think that they are not even selling it to human beings. And let me tell you that there was a time friends of mine did a research on Sobolo, and I tell you that almost all the products they sampled had impurities. They were not neatly produced. They were full of impurities. So, if as Ghanaian producers, if we want Ghanaians to buy our product, we must also improve on the packaging, the branding, the quality, everything. Otherwise, we keep saying buy made in Ghana goods, buy made in Ghana goods. But the average Ghanaian is also rational, would want value for money. So I feel that in as much as the government is doing so well, because I've been hearing buy made in Ghana goods jingles and LPMs on most of our major stations. But we must also advise our producers to be doing the right things, because sometimes it's quite disturbing. You see, if you have the money, you can easily buy foreign goods because you feel that the Ghanaian products are not of the right quality. So that is the bit about it. But I must also plead to all of us that we must be interested in buying Ghanaian goods, because the more we do, the more we help our economy. And that is also to say that we must be export minded as a nation. I have maintained that in the past, when we talk about foreign direct investment, and my first degree, I did my research in first degree in economics. I did my research on foreign direct investment, and I can tell you that in the past, if we talked about foreign direct investment, if we talking about investor confidence, if we talked about attracting investors, we were only thinking about people coming to Ghana to set up firms, and it didn't really matter what kind of firm they were starting or they were setting up, so that we see that they are also, investing in Ghana. No, 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 no. We must be intentional about promoting exports, and that is the only way we can bring in more effects to be able to help our cities, and we can also build more reserves, so that in times like these, we will not be affected that much. What I want to say is that if investors are coming to Ghana, we should not be interested in allowing them to be doing what China is doing now. China is setting up malls all over the place. You see Chinese mall. You come to Kumasi, they have about two or three. You go to Takoradi, they have about two. Accra, all over. I mean, we already have people who we have supermarkets around. I mean, that is not what we are looking for. I'm not saying that we should not allow Chinese people to invest in those areas if they have the capacity or if they meet the legal requirements. But what I mean is that we need people who set up technological plants, who produce the kind of machinery we need on our farms, tractor and equipment, those agricultural inputs we need. We need investors who do that, so that we can produce more agricultural output. Agricultural output could go up, and we have enough to export. We will not just export the raw materials. We also need investors, whether Ghanaian nationals or foreigners, who will set up industries, so that we can transform our agricultural output into a very, refined product and export. We must also diversify our export, because it's all about gold. It's all about cocoa. I mean, if Ghana is talking about export, you cannot rule out cocoa and gold. But we have shea butter, we have other things. Our land is arable. We should be thinking of diversifying our exports. And in terms of, because of the global dynamics now, we must also as well diversify our markets. It shouldn't be China and US. I mean, we should also look at other areas that we can really export. It's all about, now our foreign ministry is doing so well. Except that I am sometimes worried about some of the utterances. But otherwise, I think that based on what they are doing now, I think they are very up to task. And we should look at ways of diversifying our export, which other markets Ghana can really move there. As for Africa, it would have been the best, especially given the Africa free trade area. But the point is, we are too much power-minded. Our African countries are always thinking about how they can protect their sovereignty and perpetuate their rule. Apart from few countries like Ghana and the others, most of them are always thinking about how they can dubiously win elections. And so we've tried to unite, at least even if not politically, economically, but still not yielding results. We can try harder. But that notwithstanding, as a country, we must look at ways we can diversify our market and we can export more. I think if we do that and we protect our infant industries, especially those that substitute imports, then I think that we will be able to build enough reserves to cater for ourselves when there are shocks like this.
Indeed, we must build reserves to cater for ourselves when we have shortfalls like this. Thank you very much, Dr. Evans Nunu and Dr. Felix Larry Silfi, for your insightful contributions you have shared with us. Indeed, you have made a strong call on us and as Africans. And I know of an excellent researcher, Christine Opoko-Nyina, who has done some research to indicate that when the foreign powers come to our side of the world, we don't have the power to fight. The only thing we can do is to cooperate, is to allow them. So if we are not going to focus on ourselves, we are not going to build ourselves, build our economies to ensure that when the day of adversity comes, we can stand, then we're going to have a very huge problem. And indeed, Dr. Silvia and Dr. Nuno have made good calls on us to build a resilient economy and also to start trading amongst ourselves, which has been the call on us as Africans ever since. Because our intra-African trade really is nothing to write home about. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, The Economist, Dr. Nuno and Dr. Silfi, for spending your Saturday morning with us. We are truly grateful for your time. And indeed, many thanks to everybody who tuned in this morning, who spent their Saturday morning with us on Z101.9 FM. We're very grateful for your time. And I urge everybody, as I keep doing, let us all take Ghana into our hands and remember that Ghana belongs to us. It's for nobody else but us. So anything you do, any action you take, always put Ghana first. Thank you very much and have a very good weekend and a very good week ahead. We have the sports team coming up next. Thank you and God bless us all.
You're tuned in to Z 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.